welcome back to the Shipyard. So I figured I'd do a quick episode to get out for you guys. I've got a two-parter with Fifth that is actually in post-editing. And then I've got a couple of episodes of War Thunder for Team Tryhard that I've got to still put out. I haven't even edited those, but I've got like 4 hours of footage to make my way through. So anyway, yeah, I figured I'd put out a quick episode, show you guys some of the things I've been working on. Even after everything I just mentioned, I got 2 more I need to record. One for ground vehicles and one for aircraft that I've been working on. Slash sliding ships. I got a lot to cover. So, since I've got my computer up and running again since my old hard drive crashed, I've been building a lot. So anyway, for the start of this, you probably notice there's some things you recognize, some things you don't, some things modified. So let's start with the small stuff first. So the small craft here, there's a little bit of a story here. So story time with Nordic. I love to produce fighters. In fact, the first time me and Dracul ever met, we chit-chatted for a little while, and he's like, you want to do a fighter battle? Which I've told that story before. It's how I made my original modded Valkyrie, and then developed my vanilla Valkyrie, and blah, blah, blah. And my now vanilla Valkyrie is still one of my favorite looking ships, and despite its, other than acceleration and firepower, has a bit of lackluster performance. And many of my fighters do ever since they removed the dampeners for ships. Originally there were times 10, so you get 10 times the thrust for deceleration and for maneuvering, which was pretty cool. You kind of had the maneuverability of fighters from like most other space sims, like Wing Commander or Freelancer or TIE Fighter and X-Wing and all that. You kind of get that swooshing, or Colony Wars is another good example if you guys remember that game from PlayStation 1 and 2. I still have Colony Wars Vengeance, which is the second game in the series. Amazing. If you've never played Colony Wars Vengeance, like look it up on YouTube. It's interesting for the time period it came out. Story progression that has different outcomes. It's one of the first games ever to do that. Alright, I'll shut up about Colony Wars and how badass that was. Anyway, because of the dampeners, things are more maneuverable. Well, they removed dampeners so that they're just times 1. So it's the same thrust no matter what direction. Which I get. I do. And I was just very stubborn about it for the longest time. And even to this day, for small ships, I kind of wish they would add times 5. Because for the most part, for a lot of the designs people want to do, it's kind of hard to get the thrust ratio that you want and still have a decent looking ship instead of it looking like a big block of thrusters and guns. So anyway, since then, all my fighters used to have very little reverse or lateral thrust simply because it didn't need it. I could produce a fighter that had, a small fighter with 4 large thrusters in the back, and then they'd have 4 small up, 4 small to the sides, 4 small down, and they'd have like maybe 6 or 8 reverse small thrusters, and they handled beautifully, and they'd be lightweight and all that. So there was also the big change of where they revamped all the components and all the parts in the ship, which added more mass to most ships, which was also fine. However, because I'm so stubborn, I didn't really change a lot of my building styles with my fighters. So their side-to-side and vertical thrust was very anemic. Same thing with the reverse thrust. Holy crap. So a while back, I was on Discord, which I should tell you how important this was to me. I don't really like Discord. I'm not a big fan of it. It's not that it's terrible or anything like that. I've been using TeamSpeak for years. My preference is TeamSpeak. Anyway, I was on Discord with Marcelo and Seth, and I met this gentleman named Highground right here, who's quite the builder on the workshop, and he critiqued this particular fighter, my Gungnir, which is here, and he's talking about how its side thrust is anemic. It I could replace it with large thrusters, and that if I added more thrusters at the bottom, it could fly in lunar gravity, which actually it can fly in lunar gravity, which is a point I made to him. And he said I could also remove the oxygen tank, which I think is right there. I think I put it behind. It's either behind or up in the nose, one of the two. I can't remember. Designed this a long time ago. Well, not a long time ago. It's about a year ago. So he said, otherwise, this is an excellent fighter. We've got, two reloadable rocket launchers, the 6 cannons, which I got the idea from one of Seth's designs, the King Cougar, which has a similar arrangement. And then I used that concept mixed with my Vengeance fighter, came up with this. And I tried to add more thrusters to have a more maneuverable fighter, but even high ground was like, it's still anemic, especially in side-to-side thrust. So the other day, I was looking at this, which is my Volsung fighter, and down here, which is my Berserker bomber. This is an older bomber of mine. I had to update some of the parts on it, like the thruster cowlings, which used to completely cover the thruster, and then I added this little bit here, and I had to add armor here because it was just gone, because I used to use the deforming blocks that are no longer in the game to kind of muddle the shape here. So I just rearranged everything, and it works beautifully. It's still an excellent bomber. But what's interesting is the two of these, for their size and their mass, rather, are surprisingly maneuverable. The Berserker's at 40k, and the Volsung is at 49. The Volsung's meant more as a patrol/heavy fighter. It's surprisingly maneuverable, but it's much heavier than the Berserker. Honestly, I think I like the Berserker a little bit more, but the Volsung's still pretty fucking sweet. So anyway, they have the same thruster arrangement, at least in numbers. 2 forward thrusters, as you see. 1 up and down, 1 to either side, and 4 to the back, as you see here. And it's all large thrusters. There's no small thrusters on it whatsoever. Surprisingly good arrangement. So I kind of mixed all that together into this. This is the Svalin, which means cold. And apparently in Norse mythology, it's a shield that's around the earth, or Midgard, that protects the earth from the sun. So cold protects the earth from the sun. Svalin. And though in Norse mythology it was actually a physical shield somebody could carry. Yeah. Good old mythology. Love it. Anyway, so the Svalin uses the exact same thruster setup. In fact, you notice quite a bit of it was taken. What's really funny is this tail here and this tail were complete accidents that they ended up the same. And you notice there's a little bit of a difference between the two. Like, this here is longer, more slope. Like, it's not identical. And originally this was boxier. This didn't dip down and everything. It was just flat. And I decided to kind of tip it down because I wanted more shape, and it turns out it's very similar to the Berserker. Anyway, as you notice, they're very similar layouts. I got the little winglets with the same thruster arrangement, same rear thruster arrangement, yada yada yada. So the Svalin has 6 cannons. You got 3 on either side. Not the most focused arrangement, however, you're likely to hit a target with at least 3 cannons at a time. Which, if the target's big enough, like even something the size of Svalin, you're hitting with all 6. Then underneath, we have 2 rocket launchers, which uses Whiplash's salvo script, where it alternates the sequences, which is a little different than the old one. You can set it up in different ways now, and it doesn't require a timer, which is pretty awesome. Now, my original variant, which had the blockier ass end, also had the same nose as this, where it was the square nose, and it had a 3rd rocket launcher here, but I prefer this pointed nose, and I like having the camera here. This is the same nose I pretty much have on most of my fighters, so I really like it. And overall, this thing is extraordinarily maneuverable. I actually have the stats for it. Come on, let's go. Here we go. Acceleration, 22 meters a second. for acceleration. So from 0 to 100 meters in 4.5 seconds. For acceleration up, down, or side to side is 5 meters a second. So up to 20 seconds for acceleration. And then for reverse thrust or deceleration, it's 11 meters a second. So it takes 9 seconds to decelerate. I messaged High Ground about this. I'm like, the whole reason I designed this fighter was due to your comments. And he takes a look at it, and his numbers, he went into like 22.3 meters a second acceleration, things like that. He's like, that's pretty impressive. He's like, this thing could fly circles around other fighters. And that was the entire point of it, is I wanted an extraordinarily maneuverable fighter. And compared to most, not all, I wouldn't say it's like top notch. I'm pretty sure that some of the hydrogen fighters out there could still outmaneuver this thing. But it's got extremely high acceleration, extreme maneuverability and directional thrust, high firepower. Not only that, an interesting fact about this is right here, underneath, going down, I think, 3 blocks, there's just hollow space. There's just nothing to put there. And so surprisingly, I have flown this against, actually one of those, my SRS cruiser, which isn't heavily armored, but, I wanted to test it. I mean, I got a couple of dings here and there from those little ass interior turrets, because they're so hard to hit. But anyway, I floated up against a couple other ships that have more armament, and I can just dance around the turrets shooting at me. If I was to face a lot, yeah, there's a good chance that I'd get shot down. But you put a couple of these against even a large ship, yeah, you might take out one of these phalanx, but they're going to take you with it. And they take a surprisingly decent amount of damage. Not only that, I also had made a variant that replaced these 2 blocks here with heavy armor and a couple of these nose blocks here, like all in the front. I'd say like these 3 here and these 3 here and everything in between, like all these and this, all with heavy armor. It adds about a ton to it. It adds like 1,000 kilograms of weight. So instead of 26,600, it's 27,600. And you barely feel it. But it gives you a little extra armor on the front. But I'm not sure if I necessarily need it. But that is kind of a big thing. The main thing the turrets are shooting at is the cockpit. Even if you're in the back, they're still trying to hit the cockpit. They're not really trying to hit the nose exactly. Like, they barely chewed up the armor on the nose. They mostly shot my cockpit. So, I'm sorry about the sniffles. After this whole winter, just kicking my ass, and I love the cold. So, yep, that's Phelan. I'll go ahead and give a quick demonstration here. This thing is just, it's a delight to fly. And so if you watch, notice the power goes to 96%. It will not pass that. It runs on 1 large internal reactor and 1 small jumpstart reactor that's on the left side of the neck there, right behind the cockpit. And and this is with the antenna up to 50K. So the antenna is maxed out right now, and it'll never go past 96%. So if you ever wanted to add more thrust, you would have to add more reactors to it. Now, also this thing flies in lunar gravity just fine. It's a little sluggish, but because obviously it's got to fight gravity. But it flies perfectly fine. I'd say it'd take a little bit of practice, but it's certainly no slouch. So, and let's take a look here. 26,628 kilograms. Yep. Which, if you want the workshop link, will be in the description down below. So, yeah, that was story time with Nordic and how I developed a new fighter. So, I freaking love that thing. Also, the Berserker, I think I will update the blueprint for that since it's out of date. Give that, you guys give that a fly if you want. It's quite fun. If I didn't explain, as you notice, I have 6 reloadable rocket launchers that are all sequenced. Actually, I should put Whiplash's new sequence script on that one, which is just much more stable, and it doesn't require a timer, which is nice. The big difference, real fast, between these two also is that the Berserker has batteries. It runs on batteries as opposed to the reactors in this. But that makes the Svalin quite good at long-range patrol. And it's a reliable fighter, plenty of ammunition, yada yada yada. So give it a try. Tell me what you think. So next up, an oldie but goldie, my Sif, or excuse me, my Sif. Jesus, Sif and Sef. Every time I discuss Sef, I say Sif or vice versa. If I'm discussing this cruiser, I say Sef. Oh, it's so frustrating. Anyway, the Sif is one of my favorite cruisers I've ever designed. One of my favorite large ships. I love the look of it. It's got a ship look about it, as many of my ships do, especially the Thor. That thing's got, I mean, it looks like you plant it in the ocean. Anyway, my issue with the Sif is that it was a little underarmed, excuse me. The bridge was under armored. The thrusters, its reverse thrust was a little low, and it was also focused completely in the nose. So originally, these were the only two reverse thrusters. At one point, I added four small ones out in the oh, why can't I think what these things are called? Sponsons. I had two here and then two on the other side. I replaced those with two large thrusters, which gives it, more mass, but it's negligible. But it also gives a lot more reverse thrust, and it's spread out, so if it gets hit in the front, you're not losing all your thrust. I also extended the sponsons, so that now instead of 4 missile turrets, we now have 8. 4 to either side. I wanted to add more Gatling turrets, but I didn't really have many places to put them. And honestly, I think the 8 is fine. It's 8 and 8 right now. I feel it's very balanced. And yeah. So let's see. Oh, I don't know where I am. Oop. Oh no. I wanted to. Here we go. Come on. Let's go. Whoop, too far. Oh no, other side. Here we go. Alright, Seth, where are you? Okay. There's a lot in this world. Take a peek in here. You can see, now originally I actually had 3 large cargo containers here. Now this whole thing is a heavy armored tube surrounded by light armor, which works quite well. The light armor will take most of the brunt and then save the heavy armor, which the heavy armor kind of is the integrity of the ship. But then you just use your projector, repair, and everything's fine. And then you, for the most part, only have to worry about repairing light armor. It'll take the majority of the blow. Anyway, so originally I had the 3 large containers, but I cut down to 2, and I put welders in between everything. So all this is much more reliable in the front of the ship. You're less likely to blow up and have parts go everywhere. Still overall not the most practical. Oh, sorry, the game froze up on me for a second there. But for the design, without having to do a complete rebuild, that's the best I could really do. Also, Space Putz a while back had produced a variant of the Sif that was the Sif Mark III. So this is actually the Mark II for my own sake, but with the Sif Mark III, he had added these doors, amongst a number of other excellent changes. But I didn't add these doors on. I didn't really think they were needed. I was going through the hangar most of the time, but I decided, you know what, I could really use those doors. So I added those doors. I also replaced most, but not all, of the blocks up here with heavy armor, and added little spacers of heavy armor in here, just to give the flight bridge a little bit more strength, so you're less likely to be taken out. And I also added this screen here, which technically I could just put right there. I don't know why I put that there. So that's about it for the changes in this ship. But overall, it basically took an alright cruiser and I think made it a much better cruiser. I think this is a much more formidable ship now. My main issues with it still are I feel it's a bit heavy. And it's around 6 million kilograms. I feel that I could make something equally as effective at 2/3 that weight. I would like to make something just as effective as this, closer to 4 million kilograms. Now, the reason I'd want to cut down is I try to look at it in the way of using it on a server. So right now this ship is completely usable, but it's still pretty hefty in weight. You know, if you got your hands on, say, a cargo hauler, sure, you could break that down and build one of these. Why not? Or a military transport. If you were able to capture a military transport, yeah, you could build one of these and swap it right out. Or I think even those are quite light, but you know, you could easily capture a couple of ships and build this. But however, why build this if you could build one that's, you know, 2/3 the mass and equally as effective? So that's my goal. I would like to make something like that, and I have a design for it. It'll be my next build. It's going to be wider, just as long, but kind of on the wide side. A little flatter. And on the front, I plan on putting 4 custom turrets using Whiplash's new script that it basically uses, you know, an interior turret to guide the turrets. And the turrets each are going to be 3 rocket launchers and then 3 like just standard large ship rocket launchers on a turret with advanced rotors. So I have 4 of them, so you're going to have a total of 12 rocket launchers pointing forward and 4 turrets. And the whole front of the ship is going to be heavily armored, while the sides and the back will predominantly be like 2 layers of light armor, for example. So it'll be much, much lighter than if you're using heavy armor, but not as durable. And then the rear is mostly going to have the thrusters. Now, Seth does that with his designs. The rear part of the ship, the very back, is where all the thruster arrangement is. The middle is more your crew and systems, and then the front is a heavy armor slab and weapons. I'm going to use that concept, and I want to use these custom turrets, and if I can get them to work and that they're stable, I'm going to try them in multiplayer, see how they work. I will incorporate that into my fleet. I got to build it first. So last but not least is this little guy here. This is the Gotland. I wanted an escort carrier for the Svalin. So this is my tiny little... Ooh, that's so bright. Jesus, that is one bright-ass light. Okay, never mind. I'll just go ahead and shut that off. Better yet, how about I... Nope. We can go to Admin Tool. A little better. Much better. So yeah, I just wanted a little escort carrier. I've been spitballing designs, and every time I start something, I'm like, oh god, this is ugly, and just get rid of it. So I went with something very simple. I thought about this while I was at work, actually. I'm like, why don't I just go with a main hull with a hangar on either side, kind of like Battlestar Galactica. And that's exactly what I did, and it only carries 4 fighters. You know, obviously the Svalins are in here, but you could put any comparable size fighter in here, no problem. I'm going to go ahead and just teleport in here. Boop. Alright. So you come into a hangar. It's mirrored. So you have access to a hangar over here. Here's our other hangar. The hangars are pressurized, by the way. So if you need to access and work on them, which actually that reminds me, I might put like a cargo container right here, so you can access the cargo container. You can do like repairs and whatnot on those. Anyway, all right, let's start at the top. Which, just like my Thor, we have this nice central staircase that goes all the way up the ship. So up here is the upper engineering. You'll see the bottom engineering when we get all the way to the bottom. Put a couple of seats in here. I kind of have a rule that I like to put random seats in a ship, because if you're about to make a jump and you're multi-crewed and someone doesn't have access to a seat fast enough, they need a seat near them so that you don't leave them behind. So I started putting seats everywhere. So, alright, we come up here. Alright, good, it's closed. You have the bridge here, which the bridge is almost done. I want to put LCDs in here. There you go. Got a decent view. It's not the best, but you know, most people fly in third person anyway. But I'll probably put in some cameras soon. This thing is like 95% done. Here's the captain's quarters, which has his own cryo bay. We got oxygen here. Every section of the ship has its own oxygen. I really wanted that. So like even if you come in here, oxygen. Alright, so we come down here, we'll go down the next level. So obviously we have the two hangars coming through here. This is supposed to be the crew quarters, whatnot. We do have a cargo container here, so you can access cargo and everything in the ship. And we have our air vent back here. So that goes straight through the whole, where this cargo container is, it goes straight through the whole front of the ship, so everything has oxygen. That's how the cockpit gets oxygen too. Come down here. Now this I'm quite proud of. I fit a lot of shit into a very small area. So obviously we have our air vent, we have 7 cryo bays, bam, and the med bay all the way up front. But yeah, oh, you know what? I should put a couple of seats here, now that I'm thinking about it. DHR Mike, if you're watching, I'm sure you're proud. All I'm thinking of is adding more seats. Or as Lacarthian started saying, adding more ejector seats. He's been working on ejector seats, and they're pretty fucking cool, actually. But maybe that'll be in another episode soon. But yeah, originally I didn't even have these windows. I just had the half blocks, and you could still walk by here. I was like, alright, that works. I don't have to, you know, put the cryo bays and the conveyors in the walls and shit. Oh, I can go around them, and I can still look out and everything. So, which is why I added the windows. I like windows. What's that? So we come back here. Here's our lower engineering. So that first area with the 2 seats is right above all this. And this thing runs on 12 small reactors. I could probably take some out, but I like having a little bit extra. I also realized this thing doesn't have an assembler. I might have to add an assembler or 2. But it runs on just these 4 gyros, which are also attached to the reactors. So nice and secure. You know, I could probably... Yeah, I'll deal with that later. So last but not least, one of my favorite parts about this ship, and Fifth, if you're watching, you're going to love this. It's a drone bay. So this thing can carry and launch drones. So we come in here. Well, you know what? I can show it at least. Come in here. We have air vent right here. It's fully pressurized. Come in, close this. You've got a control seat, and you've got 2 standard seats sitting here to be able to fly your drones. So your drones are basically lock up against this wall, and then boop, open up. As you see, right there. There's your drone bay. So that is the Gotland escort cruiser, or escort carrier, excuse me. Very simple. It's 1.2 million kilograms, so actually for a ship of its size, it's quite light. It's around the same weight class as my Boulder. Yeah. So anyway, this is probably a lot longer than I meant to be because of story times. But that's what I do. I talk. Maybe I'll have to do that as a series. Story time with Nordic. Anyway, if you guys enjoyed the episode, please hit the like button. See you.